about these vandals on Tesla vehicles and dealerships?
This is domestic terrorism. And Maria, now you have this Congresswoman Crockett who is calling for attacks on Elon Musk on her birthday. Let's take him out on my birthday, she says. And yet she turns and says, oh, I'm not calling for violence. Well, she is an elected public official. And so she needs to tread very carefully because nothing will happen to Elon Musk. And we're going to fight to protect all of the Tesla owners throughout this country, and it's this basic safety. Once again, domestic terrorism is going to come to a stop in our country.
I just want to say that I have never promoted violence whatsoever, yet I've also never made excuse for those violent actors such as the ones on January 6th. So Pam Bondi, if you have an issue with terrorism, maybe you should talk to your boss about locking back up those guys that he let out that participated in January 6th.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and Jasmine Crockett just laid it all out on the line. No sugarcoating, no fluff. Just straight truth about what's happening right now in this country.
I participated in a Tesla takedown. That is the name of the website. And it was all about this large protest that they're calling for. And this is a nonviolent protest that they're calling for. And in fact, when I was on there, which is why the Attorney General had to say that I wasn't calling for violence, and it's ridiculous that I even have to say something like that. But because they are trying to twist our words, one of the things that I told people to do is make sure you are adhering to the laws in your area. Make sure you know what it looks like to protest and to be able to raise your voices and to exercise your constitutional right to free speech.
Crockett went on MSNBC and tore into the corruption in real time. And let me tell you, every single person in this country should be paying attention to what she said. This is a hostile takeover of our democracy happening in broad daylight. And we're watching it unfold like we're trapped in some episode of the Twilight Zone.
When Pam Bondi, though, says, tread carefully, what does that even mean?
Yeah. All it means is that she's attempting to get me to say, oh, I'm going to be scared and I'm just not going to say anything, because they are willing to literally break the law. I mean, that's what we've seen them do. They are ignoring court orders. They are ignoring what our own laws are. When we look at things such as impoundment, things like that, this entire administration is rogue. And this isn't about partisanship. I keep trying to tell people that we are living in the time of good versus evil, right versus wrong. And right now, when we are looking at the black letter of the law and they are deciding, I'm just going to ignore it, then they are wrong. That is clear as day. And right now, they are going after anyone who decides that they will challenge them, whether it's the judges that are sitting on the benches, whether it is lawyers that have decided that they were going to represent their clients to the best of their ability, and most of them won against Trump and his administration. Basically, they are trying to get rid of all voices of dissent.
Trump is purging the DOJ, wiping out the people who held him accountable and replacing them with his own personal goons. What could possibly go wrong? Meanwhile, Elon Musk, an unelected, unvetted billionaire, now has access to $6 trillion in federal transactions. And on top of all that, Trump is torching our economy, picking fights with Mexico and Canada, and setting the stage for another trade war that's going to hit working class Americans the hardest. That's you, Kentucky and Tennessee. You just lost a huge market for your alcohol. Now, you tell me, does any of this sound like normal politics? Does this sound like a democracy? Trump isn't just getting rid of people that he doesn't like. He's gutting the DOJ, firing prosecutors, wiping out FBI officials, and demanding lists of people who worked on the cases that exposed his crimes. You don't do that if you're innocent. You don't do that if you're planning to follow the law. You do that if you're planning to break it and get away with it. And this isn't just about revenge. This is about power. This is about removing every last obstacle between Donald Trump and total control. Every dictator in history does this. First, you get rid of accountability. Then you install your loyalists. Then you run the country like your personal kingdom. That's what Crockett is warning us all about. And while Trump is clearing the way for his power grab, Elon Musk, a private citizen, a tech billionaire with an agenda, a guy who has every financial conflict of interest you could possibly imagine, and yet somehow he's just been handed direct access to the federal government's payment system. This is your social security number and voting information. This has the potential to change ballots. And what's worse is that this is a man who wasn't elected by a single person in this country. He didn't go through a background check. He wasn't vetted by Congress. And yet now he has more power over our financial systems than most elected officials do. If a regular government employee wanted access to this kind of financial data, they'd have to go through intensive security clearances. They'd have to prove that they have no conflicts of interest. They'd have to undergo a deep background check because when it comes to government money, the standards are supposed to be high. But Musk, zero vetting, zero oversight, full access. You tell me if billionaires are above the law. And what about all the MAGA morons who are always screaming about a two-tiered system of justice? The hypocrisy is dumbfounding. With Trump's loyalists running the Department of Justice, who's going to investigate it? Nobody. That's what Jasmine Crockett was getting at. And while this massive power shift is happening behind closed doors, let's talk about what's happening in broad daylight. The economic disaster Trump is about to unleash. Trump promised to lower prices for the American people, and yet here we are. Egg prices are still high, food is still expensive, and now Trump is starting a trade war with Mexico and Canada. Mexico and Canada aren't just our neighbors, they're our biggest trading partners. We depend on them for food, for oil, for raw materials, for auto parts. And when you start throwing tariffs around like a lunatic, guess what happens? Prices go up. And who gets hit the hardest? Yeah, the same working class Americans who voted for Donald Trump in the first place. Farmers are already struggling because of Trump's immigration raids. Crops are going unpicked, fields are going bare, and now, with these tariffs, Mexico and Canada are hitting back hard. They're cutting off American exports. They're refusing to buy bourbon and whiskey from red states. They're slashing imports of United States goods, and that's just the beginning. Because if this trade war escalates, gas prices will skyrocket, food prices will explode, manufacturing jobs will disappear, and Trump, he's going to blame everyone else. He'll stand on a stage, lie through his teeth, and pretend like he's fighting for the little guy. The purge of the Department of Justice, the power grab by Musk, the economic suicide mission Trump is sending us on. And she's right. If we don't wake up, if we don't start paying attention, we're going to wake up in a country that doesn't even belong to us anymore. Because this isn't just corruption. This is a hijacking of democracy, and we're watching it unfold in real time. Let that sink in. The richest man on the planet, a guy who makes over $1,000 every single second, now has control over a system that ensures your grandmother gets her Social Security check. That's more money in a second than millions of seniors, veterans, and disabled Americans have to survive on in an entire month. And guess what? He and his team think that those people are freeloaders. Senator Ron Wyden, the ranking member of the Senate Finance Committee, confirmed that Musk's people now have full access to federal benefits, contractor payments, and financial data on millions of Americans. Not only does that give him an unfair advantage in business, allowing him to see who's getting paid and when, but it also raises massive national security concerns. Until now, this system was highly restricted, with only a handful of federal officials having clearance. It was one of the most closely guarded financial infrastructures in the country, but Musk and his team kept pushing to get in the moment that Donald Trump took office on January the 20th, and when they met resistance, they steamrolled right through it. David Lebrick, the top official at the Treasury Department overseeing this system, pushed back against Musk's team when they first tried to gain access. He had been there for over 30 years. He knew how dangerous it was to let a private billionaire's crew into one of the most sensitive databases in the country. So what happened? They forced him out. Lebrick was placed on administrative leave after objecting to Musk's people having access. That's right. The guy who was trying to protect national security got sidelined so that Donald Trump's new Treasury Secretary could hand Musk the keys. By Friday, Bessent finalized the deal, making it official. Musk's Doge team is inside. And who's got access? One of the key figures now able to sift through the financial data of millions of Americans is Tom Krause, the CEO of Cloud Software Group, a tech executive, a private businessman, now has unrestricted access to everything from Social Security payments to federal contracts. You don't have to be a genius to see where this is going. Wyden has already sounded the alarm. He warned that Musk's access to these systems is a direct national security threat. It endangers U.S. cybersecurity and creates massive conflicts of interest. This is exactly what we've been warned about for years. A billionaire class tightening its grip, dismantling government oversight, and redirecting power into the hands of a few elites. And somehow, instead of fighting it, the Trump administration is rolling out the red carpet. This has the potential to harm every single American. This is what happens when power gets consolidated into a small group of the ultra-wealthy. They are rewriting the rules to serve themselves. And if you're not in their tax bracket, then you don't matter to them. And here's the worst part. This isn't even the end game. They're already talking about dismantling the FDIC, the agency that ensures your money in the bank. They want to eliminate federal protections so that if your bank collapses, you lose everything. They want to privatize social services so that if you need health care, housing assistance, or disability benefits, you're at the mercy of corporations looking to turn a profit on your suffering. This is about complete financial control, not just over the government, but over you. And once they get it, they will not give it back. If you don't see where this is headed, you're not paying attention. We've got a thug in the White House, a divider in chief. All of our information has been compromised. And that doesn't scare you. There's something wrong. And that's a fact. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.